Hello, everyone, and welcome to an exciting edition of Training Unleashed. This is going to be a great episode because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about you, and we know that's your favorite topic. I have a great guest, but before I introduce him, I want to take a moment and thank the Learning Network, who obviously this show is from them, and my sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. Without them, I wouldn't have a show. My guest is Dan Silberberg, and he's with IntelliKey. And Dan, my first question for you is, why do we all get to have, and I can't remember the exact word, but a spectacular life? What were your words when we were talking earlier?
Yeah, the whole idea is that we should be the architect of our own spectacular life. And
Yes,
the and the idea here is, how much of your life do you live through intention, and how much of your life do you live through the expectations of others? You should do this, you must do this, you have to do this. And it's these voices that come at us. In a lot of
my
cases,
my wife turns to me when I say, "Dear, we should go do this." And she says, "You have a lot of shoulds, don't you, tonight, dear?"
there you go.
Um,
Right? So we have an opportunity when we architect and understand that we create our lives. If you want to know what life you intended, look at the life you have. Therefore, we have an opportunity, if we see things we don't like, to make different choices so we get different outcomes.
Excellent. So how do we do that? How do we make different choices? How do we determine, to begin with, the life we want to have?
Well, that actually is the inward journey that I work with people on. So part of what happens is, when we are born, we come into the world, we have a family, we have early education, we have culture norms, we have spiritual principles, we have institutional and political norms. That gets downloaded into us as little boys and girls. Has very little to do with us, has everything to do with all the people around us. So that's what I call our default paradigm. The more we can be aware of choices that don't really work for us, then we have a chance to change them. If they're unconscious, we don't.
Interesting.
So it's really it's this, what I call the inward journey, is to discover and answer this question: who am I? And what happens is, we're not the same when we're 10, when we're 20, when we're 30, when we're 40. We are constantly evolving. And so if I'm in a situation, I have a friend, and what I find is, I'm the only one putting energy into the friendship. At some point, I go, this isn't really working for me. So I would sit with the friend and I would go, Evan, I feel like this is a one-way trip. I like you. I'd like to be your friend. But if it's going to be a one-way trip, then I'm going to move on until we could get to that. What do you think? You might say, Dan, it is a one-way thing. And so for me, if it's not a 10, then we have to put it to the side. If it's an 8, Evan, for me right now, this relationship is an 8. Can we get to 10? You may say, I'm sorry, this is all I can do. So now I have a choice, right? This is the existential fear for all of us, is, what if I make the wrong decision?
People are paralyzed by that.
They
But
will
what
see
I'd
you.
like to know, what I'd like to know is, I'm at work.
Yep.
My relationship with my boss is a 6. I need my job. And as much as I like to tell my boss, hey, we're a 6, we need to get to 10, and how do we get to 10? I don't know if I have the courage to have that kind of conversation or not. What would you recommend?
I would recommend, have the courage. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So, Evan, if you were my boss, I would find a time when I can see that you're not stressed, and say, Evan, I really like working with you, and I've been thinking about how we work together. And I'm wondering if we could spend 15 or 20 minutes. I'd love to tell you what's really working for me. And I'd also like to give you some suggestions about how I think you can get more out of me. And I'm wondering, do
I
you think,
like that.
right? And I'm wondering too, like, what do you think of how our relationship works? See, it's not about this you're my boss bullshit, pardon me.
Yeah.
That's a power thing, right? I view myself peer to peer. I don't view anybody as above me. Now, part of that is who I am. Part of that is the level I've achieved in my own life. But for all of us, there's nothing wrong with being authentic and honest. And I think actually someone who's really a good guy or a good lady would love that conversation because you know what? No one's probably approached them like that.
I think that's a pretty safe statement. And what I'm wondering is, because I know your expertise is in masterminds and helping people sort of hone what they do in life and taking it to the next level. I sharpen your axe, I think is might be the term I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's the connection between the personal challenge to live a 10 life and a mastermind group and how they work?
I think that's a really interesting question. We could go on for hours, so I'm going to try to synthesize it. So the idea is that for ourselves and for others, how can we show up as authentically and in our skin as possible? And so when I work with people, let's talk about an example. 70% of people are not engaged in their work, and many people leave their job because of who their boss is. So let's take a boss. They micromanage, they don't trust their team. When they get yelled at, they blame the team, and then they go yell at them. They take credit when really it wasn't theirs to take. And this is all coming from their default paradigm. So what I work with people on is to understand a timeline of where did that really start to happen? Because it's never in the current moment, it's always from the past. So someone who is in this mode that I just described doesn't really trust the world, feels insecure, operates out of scarcity. There's all of these trickles like a waterfall that come down from those behaviors. Those behaviors are learned, and the fact that they get promoted, guess what? They get reinforced. So what we do in the mastermind is to help you to start to look at your values, your principles, your strategies, your behaviors, the choices you make. And then we want to figure out, is that delivering the best outcome for you? Is it deepening engagement? Does it make you more powerful? Are you more impactful? Are you more able to influence and persuade? So that's the gap, is this default paradigm to the authentic paradigm, and we're going to bring you across the bridge.
So your masterminds are really about mastering the mind, right?
There, the mastermind is a hybrid. It is taking you on your own journey to discover who am I and who am I really? And then the other part of the hybrid is to bring those challenges that you're having in the business, whether that's revenue growth, whether that's problems that are going on, whether that's wondering, I'd like to do XYZ in my business. Has anybody tried that? And so you get with a group of top performers who may have had the experience and know the traps that you could fall into, and they can kind of bring you awareness of those so that you actually kind of mitigate them. So it's both. You know, the becoming a great leader and architecting a life, business is just a slice of the pie. Who are you with your spouse or partner? Who are you with your children? Who are you in your community? Who are you in the spiritual realm that you play in, if you play in one, right? What impact are you currently bringing into the world? Is there an impact you want to make that you haven't gotten there? What's the fear that holds you back? So we work on, it's a very holistic play, but it's you in your own inward journey.
Interesting.
And
So,
we don't normally teach this. We'll teach you to be an accountant. We can teach you to be a digital marketer, but we don't teach you and being a world-class leader. That's what I do.
well, it sounds exciting. And I am sure my listeners who are listening are wondering, how do I take this into my own company in a way that will be effective, interesting, and give psychological security? I'm fumbling over my words a little bit, so that people feel safe in doing this? Or is it really something that needs to be done externally with a third party in a mastermind? Or can some of these things be done internally within the organization?
It's certain, there are certain things that can be done in an organization. The key to this process and the key in a mastermind is, will you play full out vulnerably? When you're with people that you don't know, who aren't conditioning your career, who are willing to hold confidentiality, that creates a psychologically safe place. If I have a C-suite team, I can only get them so deep on their vulnerability because they still are all in a system. So if you're in a hierarchy and you're in a system, the point of a system is homeostasis. That is, to keep things as they are. In a family, that's a system, homeostasis. So if you have siblings, there's the baby, there's the brat, there's the, why can't you be more like your brother or your sister? There are these different roles. And when we're in our 40s and mom says, hey, everybody come for Thanksgiving, and everybody's going, oh my God, I don't, and we get there and we're all acting like the teenage role we were in. That's a system that holds things as they are. But I have a program, a 13-week program with 48 lenses that people can work on to elevate themselves. So I'll give you an example. I don't think the world is safe, and I don't think people want to help me. So I tend to isolate. I tend to think I'm alone and on my own. I have to do all the work by myself or it won't get done. That's how people would think.
Yes, very common.
Right? Well, here's the lens. For this week, 30 times a day, you're going to ask for things. Evan, I'm running late. Could you give me 30 minutes on a project? Susie, I'm late to the airport. Could you call me an Uber? Could you sharpen a pencil for me? When you order lunch, would it be possible to include me? We're not talking about huge asks. What we're talking about is that with the neuroplasticity of the brain, if I do something over and over and over and over, I create new neural networks. That's neuroplasticity. So when I start asking for things, I ask my kids for things, my spouse, my partner, right? I go to the grocery store. Would you mind bagging that for me? We're talking small things, but you get 90% of people saying yes. And that feeling of no one wants to help me absolutely dissolves. That's less threatening, Evan, than the big vulnerables.
Hey, everyone, I want to take a moment and talk to you about the Learning Network. As you know, the Learning Network is a sponsor of this show, and I just want to tell you what a special company it is. Back in 2003, 6 learning companies were brought together and merged into one, a powerhouse, a company that literally, if it's in training, the Learning Network can handle it. I am so proud to be affiliated with the Learning Network and its team of learning professionals. Contact us today by going to learning.net and learn more about the Learning Network and how we can help your company go to the next level. So what you're doing is eating an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Right? You're taking a concept and saying, we're going to do this, and then next step is this, the next step is this. And I have no doubt people listening are like excited and afraid all at the same time. Because I've noticed that people tend to get happy in their rut. Their rut is sort of their home. They feel good in their rut. Some people like feel sorry for themselves, and that's their home base. That's warmth, because that's what they've said to themselves. Some people only feel good when they're leading a group, and because that's where they see or feel themselves. So what you're saying is people have a choice, and once they choose that choice, they can create their own world and create their own happiness. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, so we all have a comfort thermometer.
Yeah.
What you seek is this far outside your comfort zone. So I'll put it into a metaphor. Think of a deep yearning that you have. I'd like my spouse to think highly of me. I want my kids to be more respectful. I want to feel I'm lovable. Create a yearning. And if you engage the yearning, you will reach out to others. Like I said, if I ask you, perfect. I asked you, could I be on your podcast? It was a yearning for me to deliver myself into the world. Okay? You said yes. So now what I learned from that is liberating. I liberated myself that there are other people who do podcasts who probably would really love to have me on it. So I'm going to try these new behaviors. I'm going to put a toe in the water to see if I get smacked or not, right? So I'm kind of liberating. And then what I'm doing is I'm realizing people want to help me. People actually think I have something to deliver in the world. People have, and now I'm starting to retrain my belief system, and that I'm going to dedicate to continue that. And so I'm a risk taker. That's how I learned to take risk, because more often than not, I got rewarded. So think about riding a bicycle. The first couple of times, pretty scary. You fall. I'll never be able to do this. And then there's that moment. And that's how transformation works. It's like that. It's not 5 years, right? This is the opportunity that we have. And so to get it is courageous work. It requires discipline. But if you get a core group of people committed, it's unbelievable what can happen.
So in my life, when I manage people, part of my role as their manager, and note I'm saying manage versus lead, because I lead people too, which is different. I sit down with everyone I manage and ask them what are their development goals? Where do they want to go in the company? What do they want to accomplish? Where do they want to be? Some people are very happy just where they are. Some people have bigger plans and bigger goals. Even if someone's happy where they are, there are levels of where you are that you can keep taking yourself, right? Maybe I don't want a promotion, but maybe I want to be more successful doing what I'm doing. And with every employee, I develop a personal development plan of what they can do to take themselves to where they want to go. Sometimes it's, hey, a book, let's read this book together. So I was just recently talking to somebody that wants to be a coach. So this great book called The Coaching Habit. I recommended the book. We're going to read the book together. I've read the book many times already, so I will probably glance at the book again because I don't have to read it 300 times. But I really believe as a manager that it's important to understand people's vision and help give people tools to develop to get there. So how can you take what I just said and take it to a next level to make it better?
Yeah. Well, so as you were talking, I was going, that's at the first floor. Let's move up the ladder, right? So
Yeah.
one of the geniuses that I think I have is that I can ask you what you see for your development, and I can listen. And then I can probably say, Evan, I appreciate that. And here's how I see things for you. And I see this and this and this and this and this. When I had I took over a company that was going into bankruptcy. And I had a person and I said, what is it you want to do? And he said, well, I want to do this, this, and this. He didn't have the right personality, didn't have the right skill set. He was in the wrong pew of the church. So I worked with him and said, here's where I see your genius. I'm going to help you get there. Do you want to play or not? I can't keep you where you are. So I kind of made it like you have to make a choice to either just fly off, or he got positioned where I could see for him where he would, and he was thriving. And he had a family. So instead of being laid off and having to go home and be shamed and everything else, there was this transition. So I think for me, what's really important is how we hire. What are the values of the company? What are the unstated rules? Not the stuff the beautiful stuff that's on the wall, because you don't make decisions based on what's on the wall. You have a whole different system that's underneath the telegraph. And the best thing we can do for people are who is aligned to our values, our principles, what beliefs we have. We are a customer service oriented business. I hate people, not a good fit. Okay. So when we look at people getting fired, more often than not, my belief, we hire you for your genius, which we then deplete out of you so you can fit in our system. And we fire you for who you are because you don't fit. We didn't fire you because you were incompetent. There's some of that, but most of it is a personality misfit. And so I think sitting with these people, when someone says to me, I have no interest in doing anything differently, I'm just wondering what the fears are that are within them. And I would be spending time. Tell me about if you weren't at work, tell me about something that you just love doing, like photography. And I started with a little Kodak camera, and then I got, one of the nice digital cameras, and then I did, and you can see that passion and growth, so it resides within them. So there's something going on. Dad got fired a lot. I don't want to take that risk of moving up the ladder. There are always these things underneath. And that to me is what's interesting. That's the stuff
Yeah.
I want to ferret out, because if I can get that and I can get them beyond it, this is the architecting of flying.
So what I'm hearing you saying is the key is asking the right questions to help really understand a person's inner motivation and help them self-discover where they want to go and the life they want to have.
Yeah, and it's your self-awareness. I can't be more self-aware with you than I am with myself. I've done 40 years of growth and development. I've done a lot of different things. So I have a body of work, so to speak, which is why I can see these different things that other people don't see. But within each of us, we have this. And
Yeah.
so working with people, if you can do this training and become more self-aware, more aware of your emotions, where am I feeling it? So right now I'm talking to you. I am energized. I'm excited. My chest is open. I'm breathing easily, right? As opposed to, Dan, can you come up and talk to the boss? Okay, now I'm like closed, right? And my chest, I'm short breathing, and I don't need to be doing that because I'm self-aware. I can soothe that and go, I think Evan just wants to talk to me about whatever. I don't have to have that, cowering kind of a thing. But if I'm not self-aware and I don't have tools, then I'm in reactivity. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah. I love this topic, and I know that our listeners are wondering more about what you do, how they can work with you. What is this training program you have? What are your masterminds? So please share with everybody a little bit more about your company and what you do and who are the right people and how can they work with you?
Sure. Well, thanks for that. So I have an international leader consultancy. I went back to school 10 years ago and got a degree, a master's degree in leadership and coaching. And it was very unique because everything I learned, I had to apply to me. This is self-awareness, right? So if you go to my website, which is Entelechy, ENTELECHY.ai, there at the top menu is a thing called programs, and there are 6 programs that are there. The best way to work with me is either the mastermind or I have 2 13-week programs. So if you were in HR, for example, and you wanted to have this type of a program to bring into the company, or you're a trainer in an organization, the 2 13-week programs, there's one which is this inward journey of leading, and the other one is personal power and influence. So there's 2 different opportunities depending on the size of the organization and what the skills would look like. And the mastermind program is there as well. There's also a one-on-one coaching and a customizable thing, but I think for right now, either the mastermind or the 2 13-week programs would be best.
So for our listeners, our website, trainingunleashed.net, if you go there, you'll be able to see the URL. But Dan, for the people that don't have that ability, can you have your company URL one more time?
Yeah. So it's Entelechy, ENTELECHY.ai.
And just out of curiosity, because this might help people remember your website, what does Entelechy mean to you?
Interesting. So entelechy is a Greek word that came from Aristotle. And when Aristotle was talking about the entelechy, he was talking about how an acorn becomes an oak tree. And he was talking about how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. But
Hmm.
the acorn doesn't know it's going to emerge to be the oak tree, and the caterpillar doesn't know that it's going to emerge to become this beautiful butterfly. So for me, entelechy is this genius, the gift, and the artistry that is encoded in us, in each of us, just like we have a DNA that is waiting to come out and be actualized. And so that's what I'm up to. I'm up to looking at your acorn so that you become an oak tree.
Okay. So I'm going to share something with the audience, which I think is important. I've spent a tremendous amount of my life in personal development, not with Dan's program, but with programs like Dan's. Dan's program seems more advanced and maybe more business oriented, where I was really more in personal development. But everything he has said, I so concur with, because we all have amazing potential, and discovering your vision of where you want to be, where you want to go, to put it out in the universe, is the beginning. And he used the word transformation. And so I encourage people to look into what Dan's doing, because I think it can literally change your life for the better. Dan, I know you have an offer for everyone here, and I'd love to have you share the offer.
Yeah, so what I did is, I think everybody loves what I call the hero's journey. So if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a Tolkien trilogy fan, a Hobbit fan, if you're a Harry Potter fan, all of these movies are formatted on Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And so what I've done is I've put together an ebook, and it's called From Myth to Meaning, Awakening the Leader Within. And it's the 10 chapters that takes you on your own hero's journey, starting from where you're beginning. You're getting the call that you know you want to grow and elevate yourself, but then you wonder about the refusal. I wonder if, like, do I really want to do that? And when you come around, you come back to home, but you are never the same. And you see the world differently, and you see more limitless possibility. And so I would love for people to have a copy of that book.
And how do they do that?
If they will email me, Dan at Entelechy, ENTELECHY.ai, then I will send them a personal note and a copy of the book.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a great giveaway. I always love it when people give away ebooks because it's easy for everyone to get, and it's really meaningful. Dan, as you know, we end every episode with, if you had one tip to share, what would that one tip be? So what's your tip for our audience?
Yeah. So I want to give you a quotation. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And so my tip would be spend your time working on who you are authentically and see if you can diminish the idea that I have to fit in, I have to play by the rules, I have to do what others tell me, and take a stand for who you are. And I guarantee you, you will find the right people to fit in with. You will be lovable. You won't be abandoned. You won't be alone and on your own, but you will have a life that is exciting and one that you're proud of. And you will architect a legacy for your kids, your family, your friends, whomever, and become who you are. Why not? It's what we're
What
here
a
for.
what a great tip. Dan, I want to thank you. I want to thank all my listeners. I want to share with everyone exciting news that we're coming out with our YouTube channel. So in addition to being broadcast on C-Suite TV, we're going to now be on YouTube. Now, a lot of times I make this announcement, I don't really explain why it would matter if you watch the show versus listening to the show. In this particular episode, if you watch Dan's physical emotions as he speaks, it is a tutorial in great communication because his face tells a story that you can't hear when you're listening. So I really encourage you to either go to C-Suite TV and look up the show, or go to our YouTube channel, which just have to search the Training Unleashed, and see us on YouTube. Again, I want to thank the audience for listening and thank my sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio. Everyone have a great day.